In Yorkshire, England, is a small theme park named Lightwater Valley, a family park that has a variety of offerings and rides. It is also home to what was once the longest roller coaster in the world. A roller coaster that was so ambitious, it meant the park would never build anything so iconic ever again, plunging the park into debt due to the many issues it faced, not only during construction, but also after it opened. A ride that had to have train company British Rail come in to help get it finished. Join us on this expedition through the troubled history of the ultimate, known as the T-Rex of roller coasters. Located in North Yorkshire, England, the area that would become Lightwater Valley began as a pig farm. Owned by Robert Staveley, it would transform into a small, self-pick fruit farm attraction in 1969. The farm became extremely popular with the local community and began to expand. 7 years later though, the area was severely affected by a drought, which had a huge effect on the fruit, causing revenues to fall. To try and counter this, the farm decided to excavate a large lake to provide the necessary water required. The lake proved even more popular than the fruit picking, and the farm transitioned into a full tourist attraction, with an adventure play area named Fort William, which was added in 1977, along with canoes, rowing boats, and a circus. The new additions brought a huge increase in attendance figures, and Lightwater Valley was becoming a major local tourist attraction.
Just £2.50 is the inclusive price for a full day of fun at Lightwater Valley, with all games and rides free. You'll love the value, the kids will love the action with as many goes as they like. Lightwater Valley, near Ripon, a great family day out. Fantastic value at £2.50, with all games and rides free.
Robert Staveley loved the new direction the farm was taking, and continued to add more and more to the park, including fairground rides. The real birth of what would transition the farm into a fully fledged themed experience came in 1987. Robert wanted to expand on the family market. He wanted to add a roller coaster. Blackpool Pleasure Beach had a huge catalogue of coasters over the years. Thorpe Park had the Flying Fish. Alton Towers the iconic Corkscrew, and Lightwater Valley would get the Rat. The original rat ride is now known as Raptor Attack. Dinosaurs in a mineshaft in Yorkshire. Makes perfect sense. Robert's wife had been a keen protector of the area's country park status and wasn't thrilled with the idea of a coaster being added. She was, however, willing to compromise. She permitted the construction as long as it was out of sight. They decided he would bury the coaster underground and advertise it as the first subterranean roller coaster themed to sewer rats. The park rented an Anton Schwarzkopf Wildcat roller coaster, which would be located inside a warehouse that was hidden by trees and embankments, giving the illusion that the ride was underground. Large amounts of rock were blasted away to fit the new attraction, which gave the entry and exit the feel that you were descending down into a sewer to ride the ride. The coaster itself would be in complete darkness. The ride's theming was quite incredible at opening, and one of the best themed attractions in the whole country. It was hugely popular, doubling gate attendance, and inspired the owners to add more and more attractions. A year later, the park added a not-so-hidden second roller coaster. The second coaster would be the fastest in the country, along with the UK's only double-loop roller coaster, the Super Looper. The attraction was built by Sukit and had the final two seats on the train faced backwards. The Super Looper was a huge hit and gained national attention, pushing Lightwater Valley to become one of the best theme parks in the UK. This attraction only lasted for 6 years at the park, before being sold back to the manufacturer to help pay for the Falls of Terror, which would be added the following year in 1995. It found another home in the UK though, and became the Twin Looper at the American Adventure theme park. After 2 successes in a row, Robert wanted more, and began plans for what would come next. A ride that was so ambitious that it would not only become the park's defining attraction, it would also have such a huge impact that would stop the park from ever reaching the same heights again. Once again, he persuaded his wife that the park needed a proper signature roller coaster, and he wanted it to come down the valley at the top of the park. To envision this, he went out and marked exactly where he wanted the ride to go with spray paint. The valley was a way back from the park, and the couple were unsure how they would get guests out there to ride it. Rather than transport guests to the valley to board the coaster, they decided to create a roller coaster that would first take you out to the valley, even before it incorporated the valley section of the coaster, creating one ultra-long roller coaster. The designers at the time didn't know they were creating the longest roller coaster in the world. It just happened that way. Estimated to cost £1.2 million, Robert and Big Country Motioning began designing the world's longest roller coaster, formerly known as the Ultimate Beast, the T-Rex of roller coasters, and now just the Ultimate. Big Country Motioneering have been quite successful during the 80s within the UK amusement park industry with relatively small children's rides, the largest of which would be the Log Flume at Camelot and the Cherokee Falls Double Lift Log Flume and Rocky Mountain's Runaway Train at American Adventure. They were unprepared though to create something quite so big. The Ultimate was announced in April 1990, and fans of coasters around the UK highly anticipated the attraction. The ride was scheduled to open in June 1990, yet construction on the ride did not begin until early 1990 and would unexpectedly take 18 months to complete. To say there were some issues is an understatement. The track was built by the Birtley and Herburn branches of Tubular Edgington and consisted of 300 tons of steel. The company, who had mainly made barriers for the London Marathon, were 12 years old when they got the contract to build the ride and had only started building for the amusement ride industry in 1988. The park said it chose them as there were not really many British companies at the time who could handle such a huge project. The second half of the track had to be completely changed and had to have the banking completely redesigned. The wheels used on the ride were also way too small to handle the forces and also had to be redesigned to be larger.
It got so hot coming, because it's so long, this ride, they were literally overheating the tires, and eventually we had to take the decision that it is going to have to be much bigger wheels.
After construction had started, the park fired Big Country Motioneering due to the issues and increasing cost the ride was experiencing. The departure of BCM would eventually lead the company to bankruptcy in the following years. The project was completed using engineers from the British Rail and constructed mostly with in-house workers. British Rail are not famously known for making roller coasters, but in this instance they did help the park and fix the wheel situation. The ride did eventually open on the 17th of July 1991 as the world's longest roller coaster at 1.5 miles or 7,442 feet long, and taking the title from the Beast at Kings Island. While the Beast is a wooden coaster, the Ultimate is not, even though many mistake it as one. The track is built of steel, which rests on Canadian redwood trestles. The ride ended up costing £5.2 million in 1991, which would be over £11 million today. The final name of the ride was chosen for a contest on BBC Radio, with the winner being the Ultimate Beast.
You've been on rides across in the States. How did it compare?
Mr. Kipling, that was very serious out there, Mr. Kipling, because there were some serious bends and some hills where you had to wait and pose for a little bit, get a suntan or get wet, whatever, and then come down again, Mr. Kipling, and go through some serious bends. So that ride was a ride, you know?
The ride station is huge and able to fit 2 trains in it at once. This was because during planning, it was originally planned to have 4 trains, each holding 38 passengers with a fiberglass train engine at the front. The 4 trains was actually reduced to 3 and eventually only 2 operated. Each is named after a worker at Lightwater Valley. The remaining 2 are known as Tony's Tornado and Ron's Rocket. When opening, the trains were painted navy dark blue with the words Lightwater Valley on the front. Over the years, the trains have been repainted in brighter red and blue colours and removed the front wording, making the engine section look quite fake. In 2019, both trains were repainted in navy blue once again. The trains actually had over-the-shoulder restraints on opening. Seriously, this ride had over-the-shoulder restraints. That will make some more sense in a second. The Ultimate is a weird ride of two halves. Taking 44 acres, the ride used to travel around a golf course. Today, that no longer exists. With two really slow lift hills of 102 feet and 107 feet. After the first lift hill, the ride travels away from the station over some airtime hills before reaching the second lift. This first section of the ride has been compared to a miniature train rather than a coaster. This can lure you into a false sense of security, as the second half really ramps it up, not just in thrills, but in roughness. Diving down the 100-foot drop into Juniper Woods, the ride passes through the dense forest, hiding some large turns and dives before a straight section of track that was originally planned to be a wiggle section, but this was one of the changes made before opening. It is this second section that was extremely brutal, and with the over-shoulder restraints, really hurt. Even boxer Frank Bruno, who was at the opening, said 2 rides were enough.
I went on there twice. It was really good. I enjoyed it, Georgie.
Would you do it again, Frankie?
I think I had 2 goes at it. I may do it again, Georgie. I may do it. I think I may.
You wouldn't become a roller coaster addict then?
No.
Because there are some guys who travel the country riding these.
No, I don't think I'd be, addicted to this. No way, Georgie.
Luckily, the over-shoulder restraints were replaced not long after opening in 1992 and provided a somewhat more comfortable ride, at least without the head bashing now anyway.
It's been a good excuse to go all over the world, go and see rides, big ones, little ones, long ones, short ones, tall ones, every type we've looked at, and this is a combination of it all.
The first person to ride the attraction was the park owner, Robert Staveley, who didn't dare put anyone else on it before him. The restraints were not even in yet, and he was held in by a rope. Sometimes on a cold day, the train is known to stall during the last section and has to be dragged back by a JCB digger. The ride was a huge hit, even though it did receive some mixed reviews. It helped increase attendance in the park by more than 35%, with 500,000 people visiting in 1992. The ride was very popular with some guests. A version of this ride could be seen in the original Roller Coaster Tycoon in the scenario Katie's Dreamland as The Storm. The Ultimate was loved by some so much they even got married on it. However, it wasn't just the construction that would have issues. After opening, they would continue.
All I can tell you is I'm in agony after going around once sitting at the front. I've twisted my neck. So as I go to find a good doctor, I'll leave you with the thrills and the spills of the Ultimate Machine.
Problems caused by stress were noticed soon after the Ultimate opened, in July 1991. At the end of 1992, cracks were found in 2/3 of the bogies, 3/4 of the chassis units, and 3 axles. The designer advised reducing the stresses. Lightwater said the failure was serious, but not potentially catastrophic. They modified the axles after 16 out of the 23 had to be condemned because of cracks at the end of 1993. In 1995, an axle broke, and a set of wheels came off the train as it was carrying 38 passengers at full speed, causing shock, bruising, and 1 minor fracture to the passengers after the car dropped onto the track. It caused a half-mile of damage before it stopped. This resulted in a £15,000 fine for Lightwater Valley and $10,000 for its maintenance contractor. Both companies admitted exposing the public to safety risks by fitting replacement axles on the Ultimate without taking into account stresses on the ride. There were no further incidents on the ride related to the safety since. Over the years, the train has also had animals sadly bypass the perimeter fence and get struck by trains showering riders in blood. The Ultimate was the biggest addition the park ever invested in. Sadly, even though the park had a hit, it had reached its limit. Robert Staveley was plunged into debt because of the issues with the ride, and in the mid-90s handed the park over to his children, John and Lynn. In 1997, the park was sold to Queensborough Holdings for £5.2 million, nearly exactly the same as what the Ultimate cost to construct. Lightwater Valley was no longer a family-operated theme park. Queensborough Holdings were also the owners of Pleasurewood Hills theme park in Suffolk. The company put the park up for sale just 11 months after buying it, as they wanted to refocus their business. Nobody however bid, and it wouldn't be until 2001 when an investment firm would buy the park. The new operators though were just a rebranded company of the previous owners. Sadly, the same year, 2 carriages collided on the months-old spinning Wild Mouse roller coaster, resulting in the death of a young girl. With this incident, the park received terrible press, long court battles, and their reputation was damaged beyond repair. Attendance began to drop instantly, never recovering to the success it had reached during the 90s with the opening of the Ultimate. The Ultimate would remain the longest roller coaster in the world until 1999, when Daedrosaurus opened in Osaka, Japan, which combined 2 tracks to take the title, even though this was contested due to it being the same ride twice. In 2000, a coaster that took the title with no issues opened, with Steel Dragon 2000 at Nagashima Sparland, also in Japan. Costing over 50 million, it still today remains the longest in the world at 8,133 feet of track. Lightwater Valley did look into extending the Ultimate to take back the title, but it was reported the cost to do so would exceed the original cost of the whole ride.
Lightwater Valley's owner says although a bigger ride has almost been completed in Texas, he can always add a bit more to his to ensure it stays the longest in the world.
The Ultimate is perhaps one of the strangest stories of a roller coaster in existence. A troubled creation of one family that wanted to step up the thrills in a small family park, with a ride that accidentally became the longest in the world. A roller coaster that was too ambitious, that would ultimately push the park it was built in to never reach the same heights again. While constructing the Ultimate, John Stavely said that you don't go out to try and win things. But when we were out doing it, someone said to him, "I bet there isn't a roller coaster anything like as big as this." That person was sent to Ripton to go and buy the Guinness Book of Records. They looked up what was the longest roller coaster in the world. John Stavely knew immediately because he was the one who ordered the track. The Ultimate is a must-experience attraction that you need to ride at least once. An attraction of 2 halves that many either love or hate, but undeniably is an iconic roller coaster, not just in the UK, but in the world. The future of Lightwater Valley remains uncertain. With no major attractions added for years and declining attendance, the future is not looking quite so bright as it once did. While the park has had many setbacks over the years, it still exists today. With the Ultimate though being nearly 30 years old, I would suggest you take the chance to ride it sooner rather than later. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Expedition Theme Park. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to join the expedition. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram for updates on upcoming episodes, and a special thank you to our patrons for supporting the channel. We will see you next time.